type 2 diabetes only. So there you go. It's really interesting.
Is the keto diet good for spectrum disorders?
Yes, as a matter of fact, they've done research on that, and it is good for even traumatic brain injury, autism spectrum disorders. They've seen improvement in functionality with people on autism spectrum with going on a ketogenic diet.
Fascinating.
It
Interesting.
is. It's really interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to our discussion.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I was just listening, but this is the Healthy Heart webinar. And it seems like we always start our webinar where we just let you guys hop into the middle of the discussion that's already happening, because it's always so fun just to hear what's going on in Dr. Saunders' brain, what he's researching, what he's finding. And that's what we love about him, is that he actually is always seeking information, always figuring out what's the newest, what's the latest, and digging into the things that we recommend also, because he's not going to tell you to do something that he doesn't really, really believe in, or more than likely he's tried it himself. So, yes.
Almost always. I
So,
don't think
yes.
so. Having done a ketogenic diet, I don't think I'm ever going to do a carnivore diet.
Oh, that's interesting.
I've realized that, man, I just don't do well on just meat. And so in my ketogenic diet, I've done like whole days of just vegetable salads. And I'm like, that's so good.
I wish more doctors who would talk about how this might be good for you and this is why you shouldn't try it. It's kind of like there are people who run fast, long
Yeah.
distance. There are people who run fast, short distances. Like
Yeah.
there is something that works for every type of person, not just one size fits all with diets, which we are labeled that way. Women
Yeah.
should do this, men should do this.
Dr. Saunders, I had someone tell me, I believe they had some type of a liver disease. And I think for them, keto was not recommended. Is that correct?
That may be correct, because there was an association of fatty liver with eating a high fat diet. And so it's not that you can't do a keto diet, it's that you wouldn't want to do like the carnivore keto diet where you're just living on fat. And if you did like a vegetarian keto diet or something like that, or a pescatarian keto diet, that would be okay for the liver.
Okay. Good information. All right. Well, today we're going to talk about something fun. We're going to talk about your body needing cholesterol. And before we get started, you know what? I have had this lovely picture up that I wanted to share, but it's disappearing on me. So give me 1 second. Maybe you can tell us. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say hi to some of the regulars. We know Roy Ford. I recognize Edward Brown, Velo and Barbie. Hello, hello. Roxy from Phoenix, Dwight from Salado. We have Terry from North Texas.
All right, so I'm going to
go ahead.
Pull this up here. And I don't know if this will be helpful or not. I was hoping this was a different picture was going to come up, but you can see this. It's showing us types of cholesterol. And can you just give us some information about HDL and LDL? Because I feel like there is some confusion about that.
There is a lot of confusion about that. In fact, there is so much confusion that if you were to ask your doctor about it, they would probably say, well, I don't know, HDL is good cholesterol, LDL is bad cholesterol. That's all I know. Some doctors are more well-versed in the variability. There's the fluffy cholesterol, there's the dense cholesterol, there's the VLDL, and there's all these other like in-between things about cholesterol. But we're talking about heart disease primarily, and today we're talking about cholesterol in general, why we need it. And the difference between HDL and LDL is the HDL is high density. It is generally what your body makes, because every cell in your body is making cholesterol, and some of that cholesterol is packed, and then it goes back to the liver. So the HDL is kind of on its way to the liver. It's densely packed, it's high density, and it's going back. The LDL is low density lipids, and that's generally from what you eat. That's coming not just from what you eat, from the liver. It's coming from the liver, going to the body, going to areas of the body. And so it tends to be that thought that the LDL sticks to the walls of the blood vessels and creates these things. Actually, the plaques, it turns out, are not cholesterol plaques. It turns out they're clots, they're organized clots that have cholesterol in them. And so, yes, they contain cholesterol. Why? Well, for the reason we're going to talk about today, why you need cholesterol. Because inside these atherosclerotic plaques in your arteries are cells, like a whole bunch of cells. Red blood cells get packed in there, white blood cells get packed in there, fibroblasts, all the cells that are packed into this clot that's organizing. They're made of what? Cholesterol. Their cell membranes are all made of cholesterol. So when they looked and saw these atherosclerotic plaques, and they said they contain cholesterol, but then they drew a conclusion that was not correct. And that is, the conclusion was, because they contain cholesterol, therefore they're made of cholesterol. And it's because of these chylomicrons, these cholesterol particles are collecting in there. And that's where it came from. That's not where it comes from. It comes from the cell membranes of all the cells that are in there. And so when you form a clot, you've got a lot of cells in there. You've got, besides platelets and red blood cells are always packed in there. And then fibroblasts are trying to come in to repair things. And then they organize the clot, and all of those cells have cholesterol in them. So that's where the cholesterol came from. So the cholesterol does not cause heart disease. Your level of cholesterol is not even related to heart disease. And so that's a big myth that's been going around for a long time. So what is going on with cholesterol, and why do you need it? Cholesterol is so important that you can't make a single cell without it. Not a single cell. You can't make one. There's not a single cell in your body that doesn't have cholesterol. Cholesterol stabilizes the cell membrane. It allows communication between cells. It helps regulate permeability. It regulates the shape of the cell. It's vital for plasticity. It makes all the hormones of your body. And in the brain, it's especially important. In the brain, you don't have structure in the brain. Gosh, the structure of the brain is kind of like a firm oatmeal. It's not. Brain is. I don't know how many of you have ever eaten like cow brains or anything like that. When I lived in, was it Mexico? I think it was in Mexico. We had some of that. I don't like the consistency of it. It is kind of like a weird, like a thick pudding oatmeal kind of thing. But the consistency is cholesterol consistency. That's where it comes from. Plus, in your brain, every single one of the wires, what are the wires? They're called axons. And so your cells have to connect. All of your brain cells, they have these interconnections, and they have wires going all over the place. You ever looked at like in the back of a computer and you have thousands of wires all over the place? There's this one connecting over here, this one connecting over here. Well, the white matter of your brain is huge packs of microscopic axons. They're the wires that are connecting all of your brain from one area to another. And those wires, if you just put bare wires together, what happens? Well, then they all connect, and you can't send one signal through one wire because it'll go into other wires. You have to have some insulation around the wires. So if you've ever looked at like in the back of your computer or telephone wires or your Cat5 cable or something, you see each of those little teeny wires has some plastic around it, right? And that plastic prevents it from shorting with another one next to it, right? So the wires themselves don't connect. They have some insulation so that you can run separate signals through each wire. Well, your brain does exactly the same thing. So have you ever heard of white matter? The white matter in your brain is all of those wires with their sheaths around them. They have a plastic coating that's made of what? Cholesterol. The Schwann cells, they make a whole bunch of cholesterol. They make their own cholesterol. They don't take it from out of your blood or anything. They make it, and they wrap every wire in cholesterol so that they can't touch each other, so that they can run separate signals through all these wires. White matter is mostly cholesterol, because that's what all of those sheaths around your cell are made of, around your axon or the wires themselves. The gray matter has more of the cellular. That's where you have the neurons, the cells themselves, and not just wires. The white matter is just wires, and that's mostly cholesterol. But guess what? Every cell in the gray matter requires cholesterol, or it will not function. In fact, if I were to take all of the cholesterol out of your body, you would die faster than if I took all the oxygen out of your body. Cholesterol is more important than oxygen. So what else does cholesterol do? Well, all of the hormonal support. Every single one of the steroid hormones are made out of cholesterol. If you don't have cholesterol, you have no hormonal support. And what's really interesting is studies have been done on this. If you take someone with high cholesterol and they have a testosterone level, you drop their cholesterol down, their testosterone drops right along with it. Ooh. And so you have these men taking pills to drop their cholesterol, and they don't know that they're losing their testosterone support. So they're getting weaker muscles. Why? Because they don't have the testosterone support to maintain their muscle mass. They lose their focus and their drive, and they're going, gosh, I don't feel like doing anything anymore. And they just lose other hormonal support too. What other hormones? Well, pregnenolone is the mother of all hormones, steroid hormones. Aldosterone, cortisol, DHEA, which is the precursor to the testosterone and also to estrogen. Estrogen is lost, progesterone is lost, and then your ability to make energy requires something called coenzyme Q10. And you have to have this coenzyme Q10 or you cannot make energy in your mitochondria. Where does that come from? Cholesterol. If you don't have cholesterol, you cannot make coenzyme Q10. And so you can't make energy, so you make less ATP and your energy goes away. So vitamin D. Vitamin D requires cholesterol. It's made out of cholesterol. It is the cholesterol is the precursor that makes the pre-vitamin D, which goes into your skin, and then the sunshine comes and converts that, the high energy radiation from the sun, converts your pre-hormone, because vitamin D is actually a hormone, the pre-vitamin D, into an active form of vitamin D. It's actually there's a pre-pro and then a pre, and then the active form comes from the kidneys, actually making the 125. So, but it requires that step. You have to have the cholesterol to start off, or you don't make any vitamin D. So look at all the important things that cholesterol does in your body. Vitamin D, coenzyme Q10, all of your steroid hormones. Every cell in your body is made of and requires vitamin D. The connections between your cell, vitamin D, cholesterol, the connections between, or the discussions that your cells are having with each other, communication requires cholesterol. And cholesterol, without cholesterol, you cannot function, period. So why did we create this cholesterol myth that cholesterol is bad? And the reason the myth came about is to sell a drug, and that's all. It's just marketing. You guys think about this for a long time. marketing runs the world. Because that's how you make money, by marketing things, for heaven's sakes. Here I am talking to you about heart disease and cholesterol and all this stuff. And why do I do it? I do it because I love you and I want you guys to be healthy and happy. But on the other hand, I also work for someone called Barton Publishing that publishes books. And we want you to buy our books and have success in using them, so other people will buy our books and then they will have success. And so in a sense, that's marketing too. So you have to be like very careful and look into where your information is coming from and what people are marketing to you. But cholesterol is not a bad guy. Cholesterol is really, really good and really, really important. And in order to be healthy, you must have cholesterol. And so you want to know next, okay, then if that's true, then what is the best ultimate level of cholesterol that I could have? And I have a graph here that I'm going to show you. That I've shown before. This graph is not new. It's my favorite cholesterol graph because, you guys, this is 12.8 million adults. It's not like a little study that was done in some weird place somewhere. It is a big study published in Nature Science. It's not a minor study. And so if you look carefully at this, what you find is that you have the death rate over here. So 1 is the average death rate, 2 is twice the average death rate. And then you have the cholesterol levels down here. And so if you look at this carefully, you can see that right here is like 230. So 230 is the lowest death rate you can possibly get is from 230. And guess what? Every other study done in the history of mankind that has looked at all-cause mortality and cholesterol has shown the exact same thing. That somewhere between 220 and 240 is the optimum level of cholesterol for the longest lifespan. So you want your cholesterol level to be right around 230. If it's anywhere between 200 and 250, you're fine. Okay, you're fine. That's perfect. That's where you should be. Ooh, wow, you found it. Okay, see, look, they separated the men and women in that study. They have actually more than that. So it shows that the women don't have as much risk by lowering their cholesterol. The men that have a significantly greater risk from lowering their cholesterol. So you don't want low cholesterol. You don't want cholesterol below 200 because then your death rate starts going up. So there you have it. Cholesterol in a nutshell.
All right. Well, I'm going to quick save this because then you don't have to show it every time.
Oh, good idea. Because I do show it every time. Then I don't have to.
That way when you're traveling, we
put
can
it in front of my face.
Yeah.
So would you see brain decline functioning if you're lower cholesterol? So you talk about all the hormones, like would you actually see someone having brain issues or memory loss, or how would someone know besides hormones if they don't have enough cholesterol in their brain?
Well, it's really hard because it increases the risk of dementia, Alzheimer's. And as the brain is sort of gradually losing function, people don't notice it. Sometimes people around them will say, hey, you're not as clear as you used to be, or you don't remember things as well as you used to be. But the people who are coming up to having or who are starting to have brain problems aren't the ones that come in and say, gosh, I can't remember things. I can't do things like I used to do. They just go on and their brain's telling them everything is okay when it might not be really. That's the problem with dementia, is that you're not aware of it. People that come into me and they say, gosh, I think I'm getting dementia because I walk into a room and I wonder why I was there. And I forgot why I went into that room, and I forgot where I put my car keys, and I couldn't remember that guy's name. I know him well. I couldn't remember his name. I must be getting dementia. And I'm like, no, you're not getting dementia. Why? Because you're aware of it. And so you have a different issue entirely, which is usually a stress problem.
Interesting. Okay, so just for clarification here, Gary says, so are you saying higher cholesterol is good?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying there's an optimum level of cholesterol that is between 200 and 250, and that's what the graph shows, and that's what every study ever done shows.
All right, so if your cholesterol is higher than that, what do we do?
Okay, so if your cholesterol is over, like, let's say it's over 250, let's say your cholesterol is like 300, then you should do something about that, because that raises your risk of death too. And cardiovascular disease is going to be a big part of that. And inflammation is going to be a part of that. And you're going to make more clots in your arteries, and you're going to have more issues. So you do want to bring the cholesterol down. So if you have high cholesterol, then there are various ways of bringing it down. One is to do a very high fiber diet. Fiber holds on to the bile acids that you put out and doesn't allow them to be reabsorbed as much. So your liver has to use up the cholesterol to make more bile acids. And that process seems to be able to lower the cholesterol pretty well. Avoiding sugar. Now, you were told to avoid fat and avoid cholesterol. And there have been so many studies on like eggs and eating cholesterol, eating shrimp, all the high cholesterol stuff that they say, oh no, that's terrible for you. And there is no correlation between how much cholesterol you eat and how much is in your blood. But sugar is a different issue. Glucose it increases insulin. Insulin is a growth hormone. And when you're growing, what do you need more of? Cholesterol. So you make more cholesterol because of this growth hormone. So IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1, growth hormone, insulin, they cause increases in cholesterol as well. So getting your insulin levels way down by not eating carbohydrates, we were just talking about the ketogenic diet. And the ketogenic diet is one way. If you're burning fat for energy, then everybody thought, oh my gosh, if you're eating all that fat, then your cholesterol is going to go way up. And everybody's like scratching their heads. How come the cholesterol doesn't go up when people eat fat? Well, it's not the fat, it's the sugar. So if they eat a lot of fat and they eat a lot of carbs, if they're eating, a cup of sour cream on their potato, and cheese, and then having a steak with it, then it's the carb fat combination that raises the insulin and causes more of the cholesterol.
Okay, so Dwight says my cholesterol is 107. What do I need to do to raise it?
Yeah, Dwight, 107. Well, why is it 107? Dang, that's really low.
Actually, he might be okay. I saw another.
If that's LDL,
oh no, I'm not sure. I was gonna say I thought someone else had said mine is 130 and I'm medicated. So there's a lot going on for people.
Yeah. Okay. So if 107, if that's your total cholesterol, then yeah, how to raise the total cholesterol? I don't know. I suppose sugar would do it. I don't know. I would have to do some research on that to find out why somebody would be 107. I've never had anybody that low, so I haven't done enough research to know what that would look like. Yeah, well, 130 if you're medicated, not a good idea.
Okay, so what are some things that might affect that, like smoking or weight? If you're overweight, like are there different things that are affecting the cholesterol that way that's bringing it down too low?
Yeah. Oh, I know. What was that, Cheryl?
Other medications?
Yeah, other medications potentially. dietary things. If you're eating a really high fiber diet, you tend to have lower cholesterol. Like somebody who's a vegan with they're eating 100 grams of fiber a day are going to tend to have a much lower cholesterol. And I don't know how that enters into this equation either.
Okay. All right. Well, we might have to do some research on that. We'll let you know. All right. Another question here. Let's see. Let's go to John. John says, I've been put on 5 milligrams of Coumadin per day for AFib. I am a heart attack survivor of 15 years with residual damage and an ejection fraction of 42. My conventional cardiologist has said that I have to stop taking fish oil, ginkgo biloba, baby aspirin, and turmeric. I'm much more comfortable in the functional medicine arena. In your opinion, is there anything else I can do to minimize the chances for blood clots while still nourishing my body to the max?
Yeah. Okay. The patients that I've had on long-term Coumadin end up getting a lot of calcium deposits in their arteries, and that's a very hard thing to deal with. So the side effects of Coumadin aren't benign either. I mean, it does cause atherosclerosis, heart disease, and stiffness of the arteries. So it's not a simple question of you have to be on Coumadin. You have to be anticoagulated if you have atrial fibrillation. If there's other reasons, then you find out why your coagulation, why you have excess coagulation, and then deal with that so that you don't have to be on Coumadin. Coumadin just works on one factor, and it blocks the vitamin K. And because it blocks vitamin K, it prevents you from getting calcium into your bones and ends up depositing it all over your body and putting it in your arteries. So there are a lot of other ways. Okay, so get a book called Reverse Heart Disease Now by Stephen Sinatra, MD. He's a cardiologist who's done a lot of research on how to reverse heart disease, including things like atrial fibrillation and congestive heart failure and all that. And he talks about how to do the anticoagulation instead of something like Coumadin that's going to cause atherosclerosis.
All right. Okay, so this is a diabetes related question. Dwight says, my cardiologist is very interested in the diabetes reversal program and wants me to send her some information. What do you suggest? Cheryl, do you have thoughts about what would be a good thing to send to a cardiologist? Maybe even the website, or maybe they email support and maybe we send over a copy of the solution kit.
Yeah, I mean, if they send us the email, we can email them the digital version for free.
Yeah.
Or if Dwight has the digital version, he can email it to the cardiologist. Yeah, we can help them with that.
That'd be a good idea. Awesome. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Dwight. Okay. Kim says, what do you recommend for high cholesterol and high blood pressure?
High cholesterol. Okay, so if the cholesterol is like 300 and the blood pressure is high, we have whole webinars on both of those and what to do with that. The blood pressure goes up because there is something in your body, some organ in your body that's not getting enough blood flow. That's what makes the blood pressure go up. Most often it's the brain, the heart, or the kidneys. But there are other reasons, but for the most part, look for where the limitations are in blood flow. So if you have, atherosclerosis or you have coronary artery plaques or something like that, then you have to deal with those issues first to help the blood pressure go down. If your kidneys have, renal artery stenosis, which is a narrowing of the artery that goes into the kidneys, then you have to correct that first to make the blood pressure go down. If you have an adrenal gland problem, then you fix the adrenal glands first, and then the blood pressure goes down. So look at blood pressure as secondary and ask the question, why? Why is the blood pressure elevated? And you could do the same thing with cholesterol. Why is the cholesterol elevated? What is making the cholesterol go up? Is it because you have insulin resistance, which will cause both the blood pressure and the cholesterol to go up? So that's very common. That's like pre-diabetes kind of thing. So the way you do that is you take 4 measurements. You do your insulin level, C-peptide, hemoglobin A1C, and glucose. And you look at those to determine how much insulin resistance you have. And you can even ask for now, they will calculate for you using those. They'll calculate an IR, insulin resistance index, that called a HOMA-IR. And what that does, it gives you an indication of how much insulin resistance you have. And if you have more insulin resistance, then you have less energy production, ATP, which is going to make the blood pressure go up and the cholesterol go up. And usually the triglycerides will go up with that.
Okay. If you guys can post your questions in the Q&A, it's just a little bit easier for us to manage those there. Next question is from Chris. My calcium score is 1200 6 months ago. Will this help clear my heart veins? Vitamin D3 with K2, omega twice a day, olive complex, magnesium malate, natto 2 times a day, ashwagandha 2 times a day, K2, MK7, COQ10, 2 times a day at 100 milligrams, and then aged garlic and a vein herb.
Okay, wow, good. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. You've hit upon just about everything that's going to help with this. But here's what I'm going to tell you, and that is, it's not going to reverse your 1200 number. In other words, it's not that easy. That's not the way it works. You have organized clots in there, and what it does is it prevents clots from forming in your arteries so that you don't plug them off and get a heart attack or stroke or something like that. So yeah, those are all good. But remember, the pills don't save you. That's not the ultimate way to deal with it. You still need to lower stress and exercise regularly, and eat right, and avoid the inflammatory foods that are processed foods. So yeah, the whole program is a good way to reverse heart disease. And if you look at the research that's been done on how to reverse heart disease, it's pretty much, if you do a very high fiber, low fat diet, those have been shown to actually work to reverse this process.
Okay, Elmar says, question about niacin. RDA is 16 milligrams and max recommended is about 40 milligrams. Why are there 500 milligram pills? Aren't they dangerous for your kidneys and liver?
No. So niacinamide is needed for every single cell in your body. It's nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, NAD, and you can actually get NAD plus in IVs. It's like, gosh, like $600 to $800 for an IV of NAD plus. And what that is to increase the available nicotinamide or niacinamide that the mitochondria have available, so they can make energy more easily. So there's no restriction on their energy. So to look at the RDA, recommended daily allowance, that's a daily. What is it? What is the minimum amount that you need to prevent a disease from deficiency? So preventing deficiency disease is what that's about. And so if you get that much every day, then you can pretty much be sure you're not going to get a deficiency disease. But some people require a lot more because their enzymes don't function very efficiently. And so they require an excessive amount, what we call pharmacologic dosing. So you have the RDA is what's called a supplemental dose. So you eat this much, you need this much, so you have to supplement that much. So you supplement a small amount to get up to what you need. And then there is the physiologic dosing, which is you need this much, so you take that much. And that's like the maximum amount that they say, that's all you need. And then there's pharmacologic dosing, which is often 10 or 100 times greater than the physiologic dose. And that is because of usually like a dysfunction of an enzyme or something like that, where you need to add a lot more so that you have no bottleneck from the niacinamide, for example.
All right. Good questions, everyone. Gary said, does the ratio good to bad matter?
No, because the good to bad is not the issue. There are actually some pretty good studies that show if you have the triglyceride to HDL ratio, that if that's about 1, meaning you have the same amount of triglycerides as you do HDL, that's a really good number, indicator of not getting heart disease, of not having inflammation, of not having issues. But guess what? It's not because your HDL is high necessarily. It's because the triglycerides are low. So your HDL is usually between 40 and 100. And your triglycerides are often, under 150 is considered normal. But if you bring it down between 40 and 100 and you have the same amount of triglycerides and HDL, that means you're really efficient at burning fat, and you don't have insulin resistance. And so you're not going to make clots and you're not going to get atherosclerosis. The other one that's actually a useful number is the cholesterol, total cholesterol to HDL ratio. And they say below 5 is considered normal, but below 4 is best, or is good, and then optimal is below 3. So if you get your total cholesterol to HDL less than 3, that means HDL is a 1/3 or more of your total cholesterol. That's what it means.
Okay, Beverly had said some docs think cholesterol A is more dangerous, and in Europe, cholesterol A is routinely checked.
Yeah, or lipoprotein A, is that? Yeah, that's
yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So actually, you know what? That's true. I don't know why they do that in Europe. They don't do it here, because lipoprotein A is definitely, well, I know why. Don't say I don't know why. I know why. It's in the United States, things are done according to the need for marketing, and there is nothing there's no drug to lower lipoprotein A. So all of there's no push. There's no money behind lipoprotein A, right? Because it's a marker. It's a genetic marker that we can't fix. But if you know your lipoprotein A is high, we've talked about this on this program, then you can do anti-clotting kinds of programs to prevent clots from forming. And you can take clot dissolvers to dissolve clots, and then you can replace the prevent the lipoprotein A from doing damage to your arteries.
Okay, Royce says, does high blood pressure cause ophthalmic migraines? My blood pressure hasn't changed or been high at all, but I've started having migraines, and the optometrist says high blood pressure is the cause. What does Dr. Saunders say?
Okay. Remember that blood pressure goes up for a reason. And so the blood pressure is secondary. So then then what does that mean? It means the blood pressure doesn't just randomly go up by itself. There's a reason it goes up. And so if your blood pressure is going up, it's because there's some problem with the blood flow somewhere. So when you have ophthalmic migraines, or when you have migraines of any kind, that's a constriction of blood vessels. And that constriction of blood vessels, it makes the blood pressure go up. So you can see the association when you have migraines, ophthalmic migraines, headaches, a pain in other areas of the body, fibromyalgia, and they're often related to blood pressure going up. But the blood pressure goes up because of the constriction of blood vessels that's causing the other problems, the pain in the first place. So if you look at the ophthalmic migraines as a sympathetic nervous system dysfunction, then you can see that, oh yeah, if I get ophthalmic migraines, I could get high blood pressure as well. But that's not the cause. That's an association, because they're both of those, the migraines and the high blood pressure, they come at the same time because they're both caused by the same problem, which is the autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, causing constriction of blood vessels. So the way to deal with both of these issues is to deal with the sympathetic nervous system and find out why. In some cases, I have found people have a magnesium deficiency, and they just take magnesium and voila, they get better. They don't get them anymore, and it's gone for good. Other B vitamins, vitamin B2 is especially riboflavin, is a vitamin that seems to help the autonomic nervous system to be balanced. Some people have things like allergies or food sensitivities. It's not necessarily really an allergy. If you do allergy tests, you might test negative. But there are sensitivities to certain components of a food, like a certain flavonoid or some chemical. We ran into one yesterday that was a tannin. Some people are sensitive to tannins and tannic acid, and so they can't eat foods that have those things in them. So finding out what you're sensitive to was another way to deal with that kind of
thing. Don says, you say no sugar. Is that the same as no carbs, pasta, beans, whole grain breads?
So if you're doing a ketogenic diet, yeah, absolutely. No carbs. Or, if you're on the diabetes solution kit, for example, if you're in phase 1 of the program, then you're going to avoid things like that. One slice of bread's over 20 grams of carbs. That's like more than your whole day's supply that you can have. So being careful with that, yeah, in that case. But generally, I don't think carbs are bad, and the ketogenic diet is not the answer to everything. It's a solution to a specific problem that has that as its problem. Sugar toxicity, for example. Other people who don't have those issues probably should be eating carbs. It's going to come out in the article that I'm writing that as you drop your carbs, this was like a 26-year study done on 15,000 people. And as the carbs dropped below 50%, the death rate went up. Just like we were looking at cholesterol, right? You probably want your carbs to be over 50% of your calories in a day. So then, does that mean no sugar? And I would say absolutely. You know what? If there is one toxin in your life to avoid, it's sugar. Just avoid it because, think of it like lead or mercury. It's toxic. It's the number one cause of death from toxicity is sugar, just plain old table sugar. And everybody thinks, oh, it's sweet. It must be good for you. No, it's not. Arsenic tastes like almonds. That doesn't mean it's good for you. People like it, but you know what? It's not good for you. So yes, avoid sugar. But what about the other things like, yeah, get a whole grain bread and whole grain pasta and rice and whole grain rice and corn and beans. Beans are so good for you. I don't care what the other guy says. They are actually really good for you.
Okay, Beverly says, thank you, Dr. Saunders. This education is vital. People only need to know exercise regularly to prevent too high and bring down stress to prevent too high. The avoidance of sugar and adding fiber only make a smaller difference because 85% is made by the body.
Yeah, 85%. Yeah.
Allison said, is the calcium score a blood test or another kind of test? If a blood test, what do you ask for?
Oh, it's a CT scan. It's a CAT scan. So it's done in a CT, and it's really cool the way they do it. Your heart's beating, right? It's moving. So how do they get an X-ray picture of your heart as it's moving? Well, what they do is they put an EKG on you and they do a stop action. So every time the heart is contracted, then it does a quick picture, and then the heart beats again, and then it does a quick picture, and then the heart beats again, does a quick picture. So as it's going around, it's doing just like flash pictures of the heart at a certain point in its beating. And that's how they get this stop action picture of the heart, the CT scan, and they can see every artery in the heart, and they can measure how much calcium is in there because they get a really good picture of it.
All right. Jill says, can high sodium intake cause blood pressure to go up?
Okay, that's a good question. And the research on that is, it shows that the answer is yes and no. For most people, it's no, but for some people, it's yes. Some people seem to be salt sensitive and their kidneys do not get rid of salt well. And that's because of the way their hormones are. Their adrenal hormones are balancing their salt. And if they're taking in a whole bunch of salt, they don't excrete it really well because their aldosterone levels are off or something. So for whatever other reasons that are going on, some people are salt sensitive. And how do you tell? Well, if you're taking in extra salt and your blood pressure is going up, and you drop or you change to potassium salts, for example, the salt substitute, and your blood pressure comes down, you're probably salt sensitive. But most people, if you're getting enough potassium and enough water, can maintain a diet of 40 grams of salt a day. That's 40,000 milligrams of salt. That's like you could live on salt pork and you'd be fine. So most people's kidneys can handle that. Some people don't. So it depends on who you are. And that's why there's no blanket statement of how much salt you should eat. But most people, when studied, most people are deficient because they drink too much water and deplete their sodium.
Is there such a thing as you talk about salt sensitive? Are there people that are fat sensitive, that they process fat differently, maybe hold on to it more than others? I'm not talking about fat like the obesity, but to the taste of fat.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah, there's no like one diet for everyone. So yeah, some people don't process fats very well. And they don't solubilize them for whatever reason. They don't store them or use them well. Yeah, some people have that issue. There was some of that research is if you've ever read the book Eat Right for Your Type, which is about your blood type A, O, B, and what you should eat. Now, type O tends to do better on high fat. Type A tends to do better on low fat. He cites some of that research that says why people with type A blood don't tolerate high fat diets and why people with type O do tolerate high fat diets. He talks about that in the book.
Homer had asked if you had ever heard of hypertension heart disease and can it be reversed?
Okay, so hypertensive heart disease is a reverse diagnosis. Okay, so the assumption was that the hypertension, the high blood pressure causes heart disease. And there are certain things that the heart, certain changes that the heart makes when there's hypertension. So for example, the walls of the heart will get thick. And so you'll have a diastolic problem where the heart can't relax very well. It contracts very nicely, but it can't relax very well because it's really thick and stiff. That could be part of hypertensive heart disease. But the heart is just responding to the blood pressure being high, and the blood pressure is high for another reason. So yes, you can have heart disease due to hypertension. And then your second question is what is that reversible? Oh yeah, of course. You bring your blood pressure down and you start exercising, and your heart will remodel and will make a nice functional heart again.
All right. Richard says, I'm taking metoprolol, cardizem, Xarelto for my AFib, and my A1C has been elevated to 6. Beta blocker, metoprolol can increase A1C. What is a good substitute for metoprolol?
The reason for metoprolol is to slow down your heart. That's what it does. And so in atrial fibrillation, sometimes people have a very rapid response where their heart is like going really fast. And so it doesn't have time to relax all the way and pump completely. It's like going too fast. And so the metoprolol just slows it down so it has time. And I would not look at the metoprolol as the problem. Yes, that is a side effect. And of course you think because that I don't recommend metoprolol as a rule, but I don't think you should stop the metoprolol right away. I think the best thing to do is to get your blood sugar down. So get the diabetes solution kit, go on the Barton webinar.com and look up diabetes solution kit and buy that. And then get your A1C down to 5.4 or less, and then start working on the heart.
All right. Wayne says, I have had low blood pressure averaging over the last 90 tests is 89/60 with 81 heart rate. How would I raise my blood pressure? I have 4 veins in my heart 100% blocked, and one is 90% blocked. My heart is running off my, it says athletic veins with about 50% flow.
Okay. Okay. Wow. So that's a good question. So this is a complex problem with pretty serious heart disease, and then clotting off of the veins that have been put in there to replace the arteries. That's decreased blood flow, and then so the heart doesn't generate enough pressure to get good blood flow to the rest of the body because it may not be working well. So the best way to handle this type of thing is to gradually increase the ability of your heart by exercising. And that would be the best way to start off would be to go to an exercise physiologist or a physical therapist that specializes in cardiac rehab and say, my heart isn't generating enough blood pressure for circulation and I need to strengthen the heart. And so those physical therapists have specific programs and graded increases that will help you to get your heart function up to a level where it will function better. In the meantime, dealing with the cause of why you have the heart disease in the first place is a very good idea. So if you have, like we talked about lipoprotein A, if that's your problem, then you should be on, high dose nattokinase and fish oil. You're on Xarelto already, and that blocks. That's some of the clotting problem. But You might also have a lipoprotein A problem, which you would need nattokinase for that. So, so dealing with both things, starting off with finding out why you have heart disease in the first place, and then dealing with that, and then going to cardiac rehab and try and rebuild the muscle of your heart.
All right. It is past time. It's time to go. So Dr. Saunders, thank you so much for all of this today. What a great webinar, and go be a blessing to your patients.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right. And all of you, come back next week. I know we didn't get through all of our questions. We got through quite a few, but we'll do it again next week. Same time, same place. If you're new, head to bartonwebinar.com. Use code webinar25 to save 25%. And also, you can join our other webinar that we do on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Central, where we talk about reversing type 2 diabetes.
Yeah, and Don asks a question. I have berberine. Can I take 3 pills daily of berberine? That's a good question to ask on the blood sugar webinar, because berberine is primarily for blood sugar, but not limited to. But yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.